guys, welcome back to Ash Heart Books. Today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review of Walk the Edge by Katie McGarry. I recently read this book during the Booktube-a-thon and I really wanted to do a review on it. I feel like this series by Katie McGarry isn't really talked about that much on Booktube and I think it's highly underrated. So let's get started. So this book is the second in Katie McGarry's Thunder Road series, which is about a motorcycle gang. And this basically is about a motorcycle gang in a town called Snowflake, which is such a cute name for a town. I mean, I want to live in Snowflake, but anyways. So this one is, by the way, it won't really spoil anything because this is the second book. You know, they're basically like, these two books are basically companion novels, so they follow two different people as their main characters, so don't worry, I won't spoil anything for the first book if you haven't read that yet. So this book follows Razor, and he basically is seen as the scary guy, probably the most scary. This is a YA book, so Razor is in high school still, and people are just fearful of him. He comes across as rough, and he comes across as the guy wearing leather in school, and just everyone other than the people in the motorcycle gang are just terrified of this guy. And the other main character is Brianna, and Brianna is the super smart, just super clever. I mean, one of those people that have just the uncanny ability to remember things, and she's above smart. She's like another level. She's one of those people that almost her brain can't turn off. And it almost becomes a problem for Brianna because there's times when she wants to just rest. She wants to not think, and she can't. Her brain just keeps moving. So it's about these two people, and it is that quintessential bad boy from the wrong side of the tracks and the good girl from, you know, the good household. But it's so much more than that, and I just think it was done so well. I've read a lot of books about those kind of tropes, and this was one of my favorites. So I'm gonna kind of talk about this review in a couple of different sections. So first, the general idea. As I said, it's about a motorcycle gang in a small town who kind of help run the town. I believe they have a security detail or something like that. It's a company that they all work for. And Razor believes, and it is pretty much true, that this is a legitimate club. They aren't doing anything illegal. You know, if they have a gun, they have a permit for the gun, so it's not anything, you know, illegal. I have heard a comparison that this series is kind of a YA Sons of Anarchy, like the TV show. It is, in the sense of it's about a motorcycle club, and there's a lot of different generations in the club. You know, the fathers, the grandfathers who created it, and then the sons is what the main character is. But I wouldn't be put off if you thought that the TV show was very violent and very bloody, a lot of language, because this one definitely didn't have that. You know, it's nothing in here I felt like a younger reader couldn't read. There were some stronger kind of ideas and some difficult things that the main characters had to deal with, but it wasn't in your face. There wasn't a ton of language. There wasn't a ton of like blood and guts and gore. So keep that in mind. So the first thing I want to talk about is the characters. That is what made this book for me. This book was so fantastic because I loved Razor. He was so much more than you saw on the outside, because we actually met him in the first book and you kind of didn't know what to think because he's very quiet. He's kind of one of those guys that he says something if he has something to say, but he's not going to just be blabbering on all day. So you didn't really know what you were getting, but there's so much more to him. He lost his mom when he was very young, about 10, and he's kind of been raised by his dad, who is a good person, and I think he is a good parent, but he's definitely very rough around the edges and definitely was going through a lot of grief himself, so maybe at times he wasn't putting his son first as he should have been because he was just kind of swallowed by grief himself. And so there's a bit of a mystery going on revolving Razor's mom. Because she did die, but there's a bit of question as far as how did she die. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give that away, because that's definitely the big, like, what's going on during the whole thing. There's actually a couple of different plots going on throughout this, so that's one of the things I liked about this. But let's get back to the characters. So the second character is Brianna. Like I said, she's super smart, and I just felt Brianna so relatable. They're both seniors in high school. They both are trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And Brianna, she's one of 9 kids. And so she's got this huge family who, I did not love Brianna's family for about 90% of this book. I will say by the end, they did have some redeemable traits and kind of redeemable acts that made me like them a little bit better. But her family, she felt so lost so much of the time. She's teased all of the time for being the smart one at school, and she's teased as being like the quiet one or the shy girl. And you'd think when she goes home, people will be a little more understanding of that. No. And she even says during this really heartbreaking scene in the book that home is supposed to be where you're safe. Home is supposed to be where you're understood. And she didn't have that. She felt like all of her older siblings and even her younger siblings and her parents were just very ununderstanding, didn't care, were teasing her as well. And her parents, I mean, they were good people, but they were working so much. They had 9 or 8 other kids to kind of worry about. So Brianna kind of just got shoved under the rug. You know, she didn't really, I think I understood her mom. I mean, I could see having 9 kids and being completely overwhelmed, but it broke my heart. Like that part with her family when they were just not there for her, it killed me. So I love these 2 characters, the romance between the 2 of them, because obviously they got together. It's a YA contemporary. So they did get together eventually, and it was just a really organic relationship. It wasn't like snap your fingers and they're together. They really formed a friendship first. They kind of both needed something from the other one, which again, I'm not gonna say too much about because I think that was really fun and I want you to see it for yourself. But just know it wasn't too tropey to me. It wasn't too the bad boy and the good girl. But once they were together too, they really were together and they really cared for each other, and Brianna wasn't constantly thinking in her head like, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be doing this. I mean, of course she occasionally does, but I hate when the good girl, typically it's always her, is the one thinking, I shouldn't be doing this, he's a terrible person. I'm like, if you're thinking that, like, why are you with them in the first place? So she really gets to know Razor, so she knows he's a good person. Their battle is more against everyone on the outside, and that's my favorite kind of battle that a couple will have, is not necessarily between the 2 people in the couple, but between like the 2 of them against the rest of the world. Obviously her family doesn't want her with Razor. Obviously they're not cool with that, and then there's a lot going on with the club. Brianna loves Razor, but she's not crazy about the club. So that was a big thing. There's things that Razor can't tell her about the motorcycle club, and there's just a lot of kind of drama with that. So the storyline. The storyline of this was great because there were a couple different storylines going on. There's the first one with Razor's mom, and that's kind of run throughout it, and it definitely causes, it's kind of the reason why Razor is how he is. And that was really interesting to see because, like I said, you kind of knew him from the first book, but you didn't know why he was that way. So that's the first storyline, trying to figure out what exactly happened to Razor's mom. The second part of the storyline was a guy at school who was a complete jerk. I mean, I just want to like punch him. But this guy at school basically starts off the book by asking Brianna, he's the jock, he wants her to basically do his homework, do his papers for her. And she says no. She's like, I'm not gonna do that. Again, I love Brianna. She is gonna tell you what she's thinking. So she's like, I'm not doing that. Like, I am not a cheater. I'm not doing your homework for you. Why would I even consider that? And he just thinks he's the most charming thing on the planet, so why wouldn't she do his homework for him? But, so she says no, and then it kind of moves forward, and he basically gets some kind of incriminating photo of Brianna, and he's gonna blackmail her, basically. And so the second storyline is kind of this blackmailing storyline as far as, you know, he's gonna do this, and it gets really like, not like too dark, but I mean, this guy is crazy. I mean, it's not just like oh, I'm just gonna release this picture. I mean, it gets a lot more serious than I kind of thought it was going to. So that blackmail storyline definitely kind of weaves into the rest of the story. And I did enjoy that there were multiple kind of plot lines going on at once. And then of course there's the romance as kind of the third one, the kind of them coming together. figuring out how they're going to be together, you know, with all of these kind of forces against them. So overall, I love this book. I love the idea that the motorcycle gang weren't necessarily the bad guys in this situation. I had the chance to hear Katie McGarry talk about this series a couple of years ago at Y'all Fest, and I'm pretty sure this series was kind of inspired by kind of things that happened in her own childhood, in her own kind of neighborhood, and there was a motorcycle gang, and I think she figured out that they weren't necessarily the bad guys. That just because they wear leather and ride around does not mean that they are, you know, doing illegal things or that they're kind of corrupt people. I mean, some of them make poor life choices, but we all kind of make poor life choices at times. So I just overall love this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I would definitely recommend reading this. I feel like if you like contemporaries that are a bit more gritty, that have a bit more going on, that aren't so fluffy, definitely give any of Katie McGarry's writing a try. Her Pushing the Limit series is great as well. I read that one a few years ago. I love that this is still YA, but it was so gripping, because sometimes lately I've had a hard time kind of relating to YA characters. Just as I've gotten a little older in contemporaries, I kind of find it a little bit difficult to relate. I didn't have that problem at all with this, and I loved both Brianna and Razor. I loved the plot. I thought it was so great. Katie McGarry's writing just draws you in. I mean, I read this book, it's a pretty big book, in like a day and a half, and I just couldn't stop reading it. It was so great. Definitely check out this series. And if you don't like motorcycle gangs, still give this a try, because while that is in the story, I feel like it's about so much more than that. So definitely check this book out, Walk the Edge by Katie McGarry. Okay guys, so that is the end of my kind of review of Walk the Edge. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you guys have either read this book or if you really want to check it out, or if you do check it out, I'd love to know. I will see you guys next time in my next video. If you would like to give me a thumbs up or subscribe, feel free to, and I'll see you guys next time.